there, my name's Jill Tiny. I'm from Collaboration Global, and this is our podcast, Being Human, Hidden Depths. I'm going to be interviewing some of our members from Collaboration Global, and they're going to be sharing with you their extraordinary lives. Although they would probably believe they're just normal, everyday, average humans, but they are extraordinary. A bit like you and me. We all have our story to tell. We've all been through difficult times, and we've come out the other end having learnt an extraordinary amount about ourselves that we can share with others. So I think you'll find lots of things that will resonate with where you've been in your journey as well. I look forward to seeing you on the other side. Hello and welcome to the podcast Being Human, Hidden Depths by Collaboration Global. And my name is Jill Tiny, and I'm so pleased to say for the very first time on this podcast we have a guest speaker. We have somebody that's been specially invited, and it's Aaron. Aaron Love Yahaya. How are you? And welcome to the podcast.
Good morning, Jill, and thank you for having me on. So I'm honoured to be the first invited special guest.
Oh, so you should be, absolutely. Because normally we would have our members who we unpack and find out more about them so that all of our other members can get to know them at a deeper level. But we had a conversation not so long ago because let's be open and honest, we barely know each other. We have seen each other on Facebook. I've seen a little bit of stuff on LinkedIn, and I've gone, oh, that's interesting. Oh, I like that. Oh, let's put a little comment there. And then we had a little catalyst moment a couple of weeks ago where, because of the rise of the Black Lives Matter movement and my feeling of responsibility as a white person, I should be doing something about it and I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing and I'm confused and I need to be educated. I called together a meeting and you very kindly joined. So from that conversation I was very humbled to be part of. I thought it was really interesting, the different viewpoints and how people came together in a space of love. That's what made me go, do you know what? I think we should have a guest. And I think we should have a guest that's got a different viewpoint from Collaboration Global, who doesn't necessarily see that the world can collaborate like I do. Doesn't necessarily see that we all have to think alike, I don't believe we all have to think alike, but sees a world that's different from the culture and the mindset that we have created in Collaboration Global. So hopefully there'll be things that you'll be saying that I'll be going, oh, okay, didn't think about it like that. Because we never know everything, do we? We never know, we don't know what we don't know. So that was my reason for coming in, to invite a guest in, maybe the first of many, but you will be the first, you will only ever be the first. And we'll keep this as a pivotal time in history. So tell me first and foremost, Aaron, what have you been doing in lockdown? How's it been going for you?
Well, thank you. Thank you, Jill. Just listening and reflecting back. So lockdown's been quite interesting, and I've had a toddler. So the toddler's taken a lot of the time. And I think I had dreams for lockdown, almost like I remember having as a kid before the summer holiday started. I had all these lofty dreams about everything I was going to achieve through the summer. And I ended up looking to try and stuff things into 2 weeks. And lockdown was quite similar. I did have a very list of everything I was going to do in lockdown. I had 20-something books that lined up, different things I was going to sort out. All the, I was going to come out looking like a chiseled monk.
Of course, yes, weren't we all?
I didn't envisage fighting for bread or for eggs or looking for milk. And I think it's taken a while to just get the rhythm of lockdown. So through lockdown, I've just spent that time actually letting go of what I should be doing, what I should have done through lockdown, what I should have done.
Again, isn't it?
I think, so what I've achieved through lockdown is actually come to the realization that I just have to continue to let go in lockdown and out of lockdown. And we won't be in lockdown forever. And neither will we. I think we have a situation where lockdown is now possible again. So I think it's integrating that into the normality of how life is going to be moving forward. This has been the first lockdown, but it unfortunately doesn't seem like it would be.
Mm.
The once in a generation kind of thing. So lockdown for me has been discovering what I need to rediscover, and then discovering that I didn't need to discover anything anyway.
That's quite profound, isn't it? What about your blessings? Have you kind of come across like, well, I didn't expect that and I didn't see that, and wow, if it hadn't been for that, are there any blessings that you can kind of identify?
Yeah, through luck. I mean, the main thing is being able to spend a copious amount of time with my son.
How old is he?
Barely two. He's 20 months now.
Oh, lovely.
So being able to spend a lot of time, sort of, daily, every single day from day to night, and just being able to see people. There are quite a few people I knew who were on the edge because of the pace of life.
Yes.
And having them be forced into a full stop, in some cases, I think it actually saved or preserved their lives. And having seen them come together, and I think that was a bit of a blessing to observe. And also the conversations that have been able to be had in all their glory. I do think there hasn't been a time where people have been able to pause and have conversations, at least at the length, if not at the depth, that's always required.
Yeah.
So I've been really blessed by the chance of actually having to revisit this period, which I probably haven't had since. I think the greatest period of freedom I probably had was maybe in my summer holiday between GCSE and A levels.
Yes.
Because I didn't have a full-time job. I wasn't really attracted to going out, not that I was legally able to. I didn't have anything to learn that would stand me in good stead for my A levels. I was like totally free of that period and old enough to do things and ride and go to the park and
be independent.
Yeah. By the time we come into the A levels to university holiday, by then you're 18 plus, you were a bit responsible, you maybe had a job, you had other things. And every single period of holiday has had less freedom attached to it since.
It's interesting, isn't it? Definition of freedom, yeah.
Because you could be sitting there. So I remember being in some other places and just knowing that I had to take a flight back. I was starting to think of, okay, what am I doing with my dirty clothes? Where's my passport? Have I booked the taxi for the airport? Am I going down to reception? So, and then on the plane thinking, okay, has this been done? What am I doing with these emails?
Yeah,
do I have stuff ready for the office tomorrow? So every period of freedom or holiday or break has been punctuated at either end with, right, okay, there's a sense of
and it's don't waste a minute, isn't it? It's like, what am I going to do? And I don't know about you, but I've in the last few years got into the habit of, I'll do that on holiday. It's a bit of work, but I quite enjoy that, so I'll do that on holiday. And then it creeps in. It's like once during a fortnight's holiday and once during the week's holiday, and then all of a sudden it's every other day, and it's like, well, I do enjoy it. And I came to realize that would you be more stressed if you didn't do it and you just put it off and said, I'll do it later, and then you've got all this pile of stuff to do? Or do you feel better because you've done a little bit and you come back and it's not such a huge thing? But we used to have this thing, and hopefully it's a new normal, where you had to pack in every minute of every day. And if you were traveling, you were on on your phone doing stuff. If you're on the train, or if I was in the car, you was on a call, making a call to somebody. Where when you're at home, I mean, my husband has been working from home inadvertently because he still goes to the office as well. And we go, should we have a 10-minute break? And we go and sit in the garden. Should we have lunch? Well, did you used to break for lunch before lockdown? No, you never used to stop for lunch. You just keep on going. And now it's like, let's have lunch. And it's kind of like a more civilized way of being, I find. It's hopefully we won't go back to the old ways, but I've got a feeling that many people will slip into it.
Yes.
They say, is it 13 weeks it takes to create a new habit? So we've kind of had that. So hopefully people will be
interesting to look back and see where people have gone. Having said that, if it's anything to do with what happens when people forcibly lose weight or have weight battles, very easy to get back to old habits.
Yes.
And I did have hope for a bit more of a lasting change. That hope has kind of receded a little bit. And I think that because of the uncertainty by how the length of the lockdown, particularly here in the UK, exactly what was acceptable, what wasn't acceptable, the changing health advice from the authorities, the doubt around the whole process has meant that people haven't been settled enough to have a period of time to make a change. And now the scramble is back to normality, because at least there's some certainty in the normality. So I think this is where the opportunity has been missed.
But I wonder if that's just human nature, because if we had been told you're going to have 12 weeks, 14 weeks at home, would we have gone, right, what am I going to do? Apart from all the people that dash out and wanted to buy paint and decorate and DIY, would we have really been that astute to make the most of it, or whether we just would have
I would have liked to try, but for example, if the advice was on day one, we're going to have 14 weeks, for example, we're going to review it after 10 weeks, wear a mask, this is what you can do, this is what you can't do, everyone's going to be paid till then, we would have created, because everything came out in drips, even around this. So people are on this emotional roller coaster with this much uncertainty. And so that might have made a difference if everything was put together in one package. We're locking down, this is the number of weeks. And, there are a few other countries that did it quite similarly. And at the time we went, I don't want to delve too much into that because this will pass, is the packages that we eventually ended up adopting were available elsewhere. But it's almost an impossible job, because there's no way you're able to look back at this whole thing.
Because it was unprecedented. Nobody, I would not have wanted to be in charge in any way, shape or form, making those kind of decisions. And you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't.
Absolutely.
And somebody's always going to come out on top, and everyone's going to go, oh, we should have done what they did. And hey ho. But if it is coming back, which, there's every potential that it will, hopefully we'll be better prepared for it. But that's why I say to people, what are your blessings? Because if you acknowledge your blessings now, it's like, well, how are you going to keep that when you go back? So that you don't end up going like, oh, wasn't it great when we used to do that, but we haven't done that for months. Like you saying, your blessing was being with your young son. Now I know 20-month-old child is quite tiring. I've had two. And I remember those days, although my girls are 28 and 30 now. But at the same time, I was home with them up to they went to school. And it was exhausting, but I wouldn't stop it for the world. And it's not to say that I was at home constantly, like in lockdown, which would have been, a worse situation. I was creating and I was doing other things, but I wasn't employed as such. So I had a business running, but somebody else looked after it for me while I just enjoyed my sort of 4.5 years with the girls. But I think if I hadn't had that time, wow, I would have missed that. So now you've got that joy and that opportunity and you've seen it. And I know there are times when you've been with your son and you're like, oh, this is so boring, let me get back to work. Because that's life. 20-month-old children are not the most fascinating conversationalists. But at the same time, you've seen him develop, you've seen him do new things, you've been proud of what he's achieved. When you see him sleeping, you're like, wow, I've got time to just watch him sleep. And it's just this precious, precious time that you've been blessed with, that when you go back to the rushing around and the getting into London and the coming out and the clients and the meetings, and you can actually, I'm going to go home because it's my son's bedtime and I'm going to be there for him, because or you've had that experience of what it feels like to be close to him. I always used to say to my girls, to my husband, when he was running the first business we had that started in 88, you leave the office at 6. You're home by 6:20, and you're there to put the girls to bed, or not necessarily to do the doing, but to be there so they could choose, mummy or daddy, to put you to bed, or have a bath, or read a story, or whatever it was. And the only day that he worked late was a Friday. But he did say that between 4 and 6, he got so much more done than if it had an open-ended, maybe 6:30, maybe 7, maybe 7:30, because he knew he had to be there. So he got it done because he knew he had to leave at 6 o'clock. He made that commitment. So the kids don't kind of remember daddy working all the time, where we have other friends who he worked, like he was out of the house at 5 a.m. He'd get home at 7 or 8 o'clock at night. Daddy's too tired. Daddy's got to have a bath. Daddy's going to sit in front of the telly. He can't play with you right now. It's a different world. So again, it's weighing it up, what blessings we've had in lockdown, and how we're going to grab onto them and keep hold of them.
I totally fully agree with you, and that is the key question. And on the one hand, I get relatively frustrated because we've invented all the stresses.
Yes.
They're all artificial. We have invented everything that stresses us out.
Mm-hmm.
So it is, on the one hand, I'm like, I can make a difference individually in my life and to the people around me. And then some days I wake up and I go, there's no point. I can't change the world. I can't change the societal pressures to produce. I can't change the societal pressures around just what you have to do to be productive. I can't change the amount of information that comes in that has to be dealt with. I can't change the pace at which people want replies and people act and people get up to. So I flip-flop, but very rarely do I go into that state of total helplessness, because ultimately it's stuff. But I think doubt is an essential part of maturity and progress. And I think if you run away from doubt itself, you run away from a chance to mature.
Yeah, I like that. That is really interesting, because we all have doubt. We're all human. We all go through what they call it, the corona coaster, up and down of emotions. One day it's like, oh, it's not so bad, and the next day it's like, oh no, and you get the claustrophobic feeling. And you do have doubts, and I'm along the similar path to you, is that I feel I'm here on this planet to make a difference, and my philosophy is, if I can make a difference to one person, hurrah. If I can make a difference to many, fantastic. If I can have a ripple effect so the people I'm in touch with can also make a difference to other people, then that's me making a difference to the world. And then sometimes you get somebody that's like so frustrating because they can't hear what you're trying to say, and you're like, just help yourself. How can I help you if you're not even helping yourself? And then you're like, oh, what's the point? I can't do, it's too much. And you do begin to doubt yourself, and you're like, I don't know about you, but every so often I purposefully ask myself, so if you're not doing this, what would you do? There's nothing else I'd want to do. What I've learned over the last 20, 30 years about myself and about why I'm here and my reason for being, my purpose, it is to help people. And whether I do it through coaching or helping people to write their books or building the community or connecting people up with people that are really useful for each other, or simple things like passing a referral or whatever I can do to help, it's in my DNA. So I kind of have to do that. So when that doubt comes in, I go, okay, you're fed up with this. The computer's not working. The software's gone wrong. Your friend that you thought was great is really annoying you, and blah, 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 whatever. What else are you going to do? No, I like doing this. This is who I am. This is my being. And I asked you earlier about your being, what you're about. And you were sharing not a dissimilar story, in that you're out there to help people to maximize. So tell us a story. There you go, putting you on the spot as usual. Tell me a client that you've helped that just made you feel so good. How were you able to help them? Obviously, no names, no pack drill, but how were you able to help them to sort of demonstrate the kind of thing that you do on a daily basis?
So here we are. You've really put me on the spot.
Think of your best testimonial.
I have. Okay, so let me take the question and actually drill out the essence. I've had a lot of people that work for me over the years, so probably over about 20 years. I've had various people in. I've had about 800 staff, varying from part-time to full-time. Mm-hmm. And I think, without drilling down to one person, every single week or every other week, I get a message from someone who's worked for me or I've done business with, sometimes even up to 10 years, and to say something or say that thing that you said, which honestly I don't really remember, has made this much of a difference. Wow. So for example, this morning, someone who worked for me years ago now, and is now a doctor, got in touch with me about something that, before we came on, something that she was doing for her house as a result of something that I did say. And so, even though it's probably not really the thing in the PD industry, I don't actually keep score, which is part of the series of conflicts that I have, is because when you provide value, it is, at least we're told, that you have to reflect some worth in getting paid to move forward, right? And that reflects it. But then on the other hand, I also struggle with the idea of getting paid for something that I would do for free. But there is also integrity in having bills to pay and having things to do and having to move forward and having people value their time by putting money towards it, which is the currency we look for success, and to value your time because you've spent time and money and years to research and to be in the position, you've learned from the experiences and you've gone out there and done the work, and you should be rewarded for it. So to not get rewarded for it is actually, could actually speak to something about your own self-esteem. Yeah. But on the other hand, I am very conscious of guarding my humanity such that money doesn't become the motivation. And so I'm always flip-flopping in that balance. So when it comes down to client testimonials or case studies, because I've been across different industries, there's so much that people have done, and I have so many things that I can pull out from someone who's been able to save, 60,000 on a 24 grand a year salary, right? Within sort of 2 years. So that's in, saving, making sure they hit their bonuses, all the rest of it, right? To people who've gone and bought their first property, to people who've started businesses, people who I've mentored to start businesses that have then gone on to buy a house for their mother. There are just so many different things, and what I live for is seeing people be in a place where they turn around and they say thank you, not because it makes me feel good, but because it's made a tangible difference to their life, that they're filled with gratitude for someone else, in the hope that they will then, pay it forward.
Yes. Oh, I don't hope, I tell them to.
So yeah, I do, but it's one of those things where I'm probably touching on the issues of where we met is there are things of the head and things of the heart, right? And when it's from the heart, it's more likely to be done than when it's from the head.
Definitely.
So what we have is a situation where you guard your heart with your head, not your head with your heart. And I want to explain how this works in context is you have to start with the basis of foundation of what there is to do and what's right and what you stand for. And in this case is in terms of, this is my motto. The purpose of my life is to live, show, and share an abundant life, illuminating the best of God's love for the human race, such that people are confident in what they want to do to fulfill their potential. So this is the motto, and this is the soundtrack with which I approach everything. Now, in answer to your question, numerous, but what I get out of it is not their achievements, but it's in who they become in that process. And the fact they can turn around and say thank you, not because it makes me feel good, but to have someone be able to achieve with gratitude is probably the biggest thing, because when you're grateful, you can be generous.
Yes, indeed. I read a post on LinkedIn about that today, actually. I'm just trying to, you should be generous as you go, not generous after the event, after the fact. Have you come across Ricardo Semler? He did an amazing TED talk, and I just bring this back again and again. His quote was, when people say to me, I feel it's time I should give back to society. And he says, if you're telling me you need to give back, you took too much in the first place. And I like that whole philosophy of, giving as you go. And that, going back to your wealth description again, is you need, if you have a talent and a skill that can help people, don't be afraid of charging for it, because there are going to be people that can't pay, but you charge the people that can pay, they get the benefit of you, and as they should do, and then you've got the wherewithal to go and help those people that can't afford it at all. So it's kind of the balance, the yin and the yang, but understanding your value and your worth means that you know how much you can charge those people that can afford it. And it's those people that are the ones that keep the wheels turning. I'm more than happy to pay for anything if I know I'm going to get value that I can then share to a lot more people. Why would you not?
Absolutely. And I totally agree with that. I think this comes into something that we touched on a little bit earlier in terms of staying away from money being the most
Driver.
not just the driver, the most powerful symbol of value.
Yeah.
Which is what society
says,
or success, which is what society says.
Yeah.
And so I feel helpless in terms of I can't go around and turn away saying that money makes the world go round, and sometimes it does boil down to money. Mm-hmm. So I almost begrudgingly have to exist in the system that's there. And I'm like, I would love it that money wasn't the most valuable thing or the show of success or the show of anything, but that is out of my power, and I'm kind of accepting that. But I do get frustrated where I'm like, I know I do have to charge because this is how we do value and this is how we show worth, and I have bills to pay. Yeah. And yes, it is valuable and someone is willing to pay and there's nothing in there. But I'm a bit reticent at thinking, yes, but no, is there a better way? Is there another way? And yes, you're paying for it, but what's more valuable for me is that connection with a human being. And yes, there's a price to it, but just the thinking, because there is a thinking that comes with that.
Yes.
And it's
a very emotive subject, money, isn't it? It's connected to people's vision of themselves. You know, if I'm wealthy, then people will like me more, and all this kind of status that they have around money. For me personally, as a kid, we didn't have any, but I never thought we were poor because my parents' mindset was wealth. You know, it was like, we've got everything we need. What do we need? We're fine. Even though, looking back, I can go flip. Maybe we didn't have enough food at the end of the week. You know, it was literally quite tough. So going back to what you're saying, can we change this? Did you know there's a guy in, I think in South Africa at the moment, and he started the Ubuntu movement. Have you come across this?
No, do you know what? I've seen this, but I remember the last time I thought I saw this, it was a programming language.
Oh, okay. No, this is something quite special, is that he believes we can survive without money. And he spent years, I mean, he's been doing this for about, 17, 18 years. And he spent years looking for a town that would take on his concept. And he found one, excuse me, in Canada. And basically they kind of almost sealed themselves. This is the perimeter. This is our Ubuntu movement space. And they started trading with each other without the use of money. So it's the Canadian, I don't know what they call the town now. I can't remember it. But the mayor used to go onto Facebook once a week and say, how's it going? Because it was an experiment. They were trying it out. And week after week after week, it's like, I can't believe this. This is amazing. We've got people doing this. We've got people doing that. It's incredible. I'm like, wow, I haven't looked at it lately to find out how well he's doing, but the whole, you go and find out. I'll find out his name and I'll see if I can put it with this podcast. But the Ubuntu movement from Africa, it started in Africa, and it's flowing, and it's like, oh, if only the world could see how it could exist without money. And wealth is a state of mind, and it's nothing to do with your status. Well, and it's nothing to do with money. Wealth is nothing to do with money, but if you have it, that's a measure of your how you deem success to be. But it might not be your success. For me, my success is having 2 kids that are happy, and I measure that every time I see them. Before we go, in the old days, it used to be a hug and a kiss, and I look at her in the eyes like, "You happy?" "Yes, Mum, I'm happy." "Good. I'm done. My job is done." That's all I need to know. And if they weren't happy, they would tell me. You know, it's having deep, meaningful relationships, to me, is a measure of success. And if you can look around you and all the people around you are kind of people that are sucking and taking from you, and you're not able to look above you and go, oh, these people are inspiring me, then the level's not quite right. And you've got to have it at this level in order for that personal feel-good factor, that happiness thing that we're all searching for, comes into play. It's the balance, isn't it? It's like ikigai, you know, community and friendships and relationships give you a longer life. It focuses you on that way. So I think the pandemic has given us this opportunity to go, don't need so much money. Actually, I don't need to spend every week. Don't really need all that stuff that I had. How many people have you heard about clearing out the clutter? You know, it's really given people an opportunity to see things in a new way. And that's why I think that the moving swiftly on, the Black Lives Matter movement has taken up so more than it ever has. It's been there for a long time, and it's come up and it's gone down, and it's come up and it's gone down. But now it's like people are at home listening. People that should be listening are listening. It's not just black people talking to black people and going, it's not a whinge fest. It's an educational, formative, growing realization. And that is where the wealth is, when we can come together, when we can connect with anyone on the planet and recognize, I'm a human, you're a human. You're male, I'm female. You're black, you're white. You're tall, I'm short. How many other differences can we find? But it's differences that can bring us together. As the French would say, vive la différence. I cannot work out why. Well, I know why. It's the society we've lived in has pulled us apart at every step of the way. Our business, we can't talk to him, we're in competition. The other classic saying that happened with me and Beju when we very first met, probably 15 years ago, we were at a networking meeting.
Yeah.
And I'd met him once before briefly, and he was the other side of the room. And this guy came up to me and went, oh, don't go and talk to him. He's also a business coach. You don't want to talk to him, he's your competition. And I'm like, why would I not want to talk to him? You know, so we ended up, so I'm like, hello, do you remember me? So we got chatting, had a great time, I had a one-to-one, and we've been friends ever since. So most people feel like, you know, let's separate. You can't possibly talk to your competition, where if accountants talk to accountants, do you know what, they help each other. And when you have this abundance mindset, there's enough business to go around. I don't have to be scared of you. I don't have to protect my IP. I'm my IP. You can't replicate me.
Absolutely.
So why would you be mean to me? Why would you be horrible? And it's the same when people get scared about, I don't understand it, it's a different, oh, I'm not sure. You know, your skin's not the same color as my skin. I'm not sure. I'm a bit, no, it's like, wow, your skin's not the same color as my skin. That's cool. Let's find out more about each other. It's about having a different, we've got to flick the switch. And I think the switch is ready to be flipped now. What's your experience? Sorry.
I would, it's okay. I was actually enjoying coming at it. I'd like to sort of just rewind and just close up a couple of things. So and I'll come back to it in terms of my constant conversation and dialogue with society in general, in terms of, and when I say society, I will say the representation of the zeitgeist as put forward by the media and put forward by the access to the information that we commonly have. Mm. And very few people take some time to really think independently to examine whether it's true or not. So it's fair for me to kind of say society and the zeitgeist, because that's just the way it plays out. So I wanted to address the very first thing is, in business, I reached a point where, I lost a lot of money. And I'd done a lot of PD and training and everything else. And I realized that on top of this whole layer, I was still very much affected by my bank balance. So after I'd gone through the bit of disappointment, I came to also realize that money is something that you get, so you don't have to think about money while you're here on this earth. Okay. Because while you're thinking about money or trying to get it or trying to earn it or whatever, like, you're actually not thinking about the other things that you're hearing. So to have the don't get money approach, I don't think is wrong, because like, it's all good being in tie-dye, but when you get evicted and you can't pay your bills, you can't really, reach out to people. You can't pay your phone bill and go on Facebook Live and do that. On the other hand, if you're just chasing money, you'll get there and you'll be like, I've got loads of money, but no friends to let them off, no personality. But on the other hand, when you're trying to think about deeper things, sometimes you just need time. You don't want to really be thinking about money all the time. So it's getting that balance right, but never for money itself. So you create the money's there, so you don't have to think about money whilst you create what you're here to do.
Yeah.
And which is slightly different from, so you can go on the yachts and the boats and everything else. So, but I wanted to come back to what you said about where we are, especially in relation to, the Black Lives Matter movement, which is where we actually met, and where I, as a black man here in the UK, of a certain age. Again, here we have the whole thing with society. I take a slightly different view from society and from the zeitgeist over this, because this is one thing I want to speak factually and truthfully. And truthfully, under law, there is no discrimination in legal terms for Black people, neither in the States, neither in the UK. There is nothing on the statute books which is discriminatory. And controversially, there's actually stuff which is preferential in some cases. Now, that's the fact. What is also true is the application has been very different. There is discrimination in the application. There are a lot of hidden things that aren't said. There's a lot of technical language used to have discrimination. So I'm talking of, a generation of say our mothers who were not good enough to get the promotion, but trained the next generation of street managers who then gone on to retire at a higher level with a final salary pension. That's going to follow them for the next 20 years, 30 years. We're talking about being more qualified than someone, and coming to apply for a job and then being told you're overqualified or you're underqualified, and then getting the qualification and being told you're too qualified, and, come in and saying, okay, because you've come a little bit older, because you've done more qualifications, we're looking for someone with a different age profile. And me being stopped in the street for certain things, me being followed around shops, me not being allowed into the certain places, being asked for certain ID, me being even ID'd and taking a McDonald's, getting a McDonald's and some doubt whether it was my order. So we're talking about all these things that happen, but I still want us to be factual and true. And there is no discrimination in the law if you're Black. I can speak of Black. Again, the experiences when we say BAME in the UK. Now, what I'm saying is controversial today, but it shouldn't be. And that's where we are in society, right? It's controversial because I'm not eating up a parroted narrative. Now, the one thing that we need to be very careful of is empathy. And I think what's happened is, I think that I know there is genuine pain in my community, in people that have experienced this, with true stories of everything that's coming out. And I know this because, surprise, surprise, I've been Black all my life. I grew up with, I have friends in the police, to friends, that have spent time behind, to friends, people in between, to friends in medicine, I even have, so for example, one of my cousins is the head of the police oversight board in Dallas, right? A politician. Another one of my cousins worked in Obama's White House as a staffer and is doing the same for Joe Biden. Wow. And then, I have cousins in New York. I have them in Washington. I have them in Atlanta. I have them in Minnesota. I have them in Colorado.
Big family.
Yeah, 60 cousins in
Really? Wow. I don't get to your party.
So I'm very much plugged into the experience, as well as being here in the UK.
You know what's happening at the ground floor.
I know exactly what's happening on the ground. So there's a group of us who did a lot of work. We're going on working with young people, and we're a group of young men. And in that group, we have very high up police officers who were controlling things at the demonstration, and we have people in that same group who are at the demonstration, and we're in the same WhatsApp group because we're all childhood friends.
Wow.
And so
so do they, when you talk to them, do they have biases from the group that they're from, in that they don't necessarily agree with what's going on? Do they still see it from the same viewpoint?
No. The thing I should put at the front is we're also joined by our faith, because we're Christians. Okay. And so as Christians, we're kingdom citizens first. And the Bible says there's no Jew, no Greek, no Gentile. So I see people first as a human being, because before I see the color of the skin. That's different from saying I don't see color. Yeah. Because seeing the color of the skin is seeing someone's uniqueness. You want to see their like
the color of their eyes,
their culture, their family. So it is a different thing. But I look at individuals. Now, individuals, in the way they behave, can be influenced by the culture they're from, which, depending on which geographical area of the world, could mean that their skin tone could look different. Yeah. It's a very different way of distilling it. you know, as opposed to the color of their skin. So, for example, I have some friends that are Hong Kong Chinese, and I have some that are British Chinese, and I have some that have grown up in Africa. They're not that many, but they're all different, even if their skin tone looks a little bit the same. They're different. They're different people.
Yeah.
The mentality is different, and it's the same, especially with Africans. Okay, so I want to sort of dial back up to the high level to just bring together what I was saying. Is I really think that we should pursue truth, then justice tempered with mercy. You see, truth. So this is why I started with the truth and accurately. It's not accurate that Black people are different under the law in a discriminatory way. It is just not accurate. It's not true. But it is accurate that we have faced discrimination in the application of the laws. Okay, so for me, it is important to examine the context in truth for a way forward. Now, on the one hand, there are good things that are coming out of this in terms of more awareness.
Yeah.
On the other hand, I think there is a clear and present danger that we are having. There are a lot of other agendas that are attached to this, which actually work against what it is to take your fellow man on face value and to treat human beings with respect. So for me, while it's been great to see people getting a bit more aware, I asked questions thinking, should you not have done anything extra I can only speak from a British perspective, should you have not done anything extra on discovering the empire and the times? If you've come through a normal British education system, you know enough about the nature of evil, because we learn about World War II. I'm not going to open up that can. We learn about Martin Luther King and the civil rights. We even learn about the suffragettes. We learn about the difference between good and evil and treating people fairly. So we already have enough in legislation to not do some of the things that we do. More facts don't really change hearts.
No.
They might lead to layers to external behavior looking different. But the main problem we actually face in terms of whether discrimination is what people do with the policies, right? And that is a heart matter. And I'm still observing whether this is creating more unity or more division, because I've observed the people that would be more likely to say, hey, I want to expand my learning, are the same people who have been backing causes. So they would be some of the people that would have looked at, animal rights, that have looked at veganism, that would have looked at environmental issues, that have looked at child trafficking, that have looked at, some of the concern from Amnesty International. So I'm not seeing people who, one day were marching down, doing Nazi salutes and burning flags, all of a sudden saying, oh yeah, wow, I didn't know that, right? Because what's driving them is hate in some cases, is hate and fear, right? And they either express that through, attacking someone for their gender, attacking someone for their wealth, attacking someone for their color, attacking someone for their job, attacking someone for their accent. But at the bottom line of this is hate and fear. It's a heart issue.
And I think it's different for every individual, because some people will have been brought up in a way so it's an unconscious bias and it's something they're not even aware of. And some people will have been damaged as they were brought up, so they have this hate and this fear in them, and it's like, well, what do I direct it to? Well, that looks like a good idea. I'm going to go and have a fight over there. It's this pent up brokenness inside of them. And it's almost like everybody's duty is to get close to these people in order to bring a change. It's like that guy, I don't know if you sent me the link, who was in America, who is converting, is a black guy converting the Ku Klux Klan one by one. And he's got 200 robes, hasn't he? And he just befriends them. And he's like, I'm a normal person. You don't. And of course, they've all got their own, they're crazy. They've got their own problems. They were probably bullied at school and all sorts of things that have gone on. And they love to cover their faces and be, nobody know who's anonymous. They can be anonymous. And then the upset that they've got in their lives, they can direct it at something. And because it's so big in America, it's a great one to kind of like, oh yeah, I'll get out there. It's the same as the NFA over in America. People are very passionate about, I've got to have, I'm allowed by the Constitution to have a gun, so I'm going to have a gun. And
NRA.
Sorry, what did I say?
NFA. So
oh, beg your pardon. Well, yes, thank you. No, yeah, firearms, yes. So it isn't let's make a law and everyone's got to obey the law. It isn't. It's absolutely about every single individual getting close to someone and calling them out every time they see some racism. It's like, why would you do that? And I've said this before, and it's really glib, and I apologize for it, but my future thinking, I always like to see what would it look like in the future, is 20 years ago, we didn't used to smoke in restaurants. 20 years ago we did used to smoke, and it was you'd sit there and somebody would be smoking, you'd be like, you wouldn't say anything because it was loud and people did it, and you're like, oh, I don't know how people do that, but they do. And you'd have this inner you wouldn't do anything about it. Now if one person smoked in a restaurant, the whole restaurant would be like, oh, excuse me, I don't think so, that's not a good idea, we shouldn't be doing that, the law, yeah, thank you. But everyone would call them out. Wouldn't that be great if there was any bit of racism anywhere, that the people around just called it out? Like, what are you like, mate? It's unfashionable. It's not cool to do that. Stop it. Just get over it. But we all, as individuals, have to be brave to do that. Not from a point of view of blame, because sometimes it's just ignorance and they don't know what they're doing. But at least call them out in a way that they can excuse themselves and think twice about doing it next time. And the time after and before, it's like, oh, it's not worth it. I'm not going to get a rise out of this, so I'm not going to do it. It's kind of understanding where their pain is and then pouring oil on it so that we can support it. But I'd just love to see that time, 2 years' time. Would that be lovely? 1 year time for Absolutely. People to just not have it in their space.
See, I absolutely agree with that idea. And you'll probably tell from my tone that whether I'm hopeful about it is a different thing. And this comes down to it because we have something else. And, I'm just speaking from the heart, is like, in the pursuit of ultimate freedom and hedonism, we've also lost boundaries. The problem without boundaries is, you see, people think ultimate freedom is about responsibility and boundaries. I'll give you an example. I have the freedom to drive my car anytime I want, wherever. I have the freedom to drive it on the road. Mm-hmm. Having said that, the road has boundaries, right? So I can't decide to drive on the pavement. I can't decide to drive on the other side of the road. And then there's also responsibility. I'm not going to drive drunk or go 80 miles an hour in a 20-mile bicycle. So freedom comes with the responsibility and boundaries. The issue I have is that we are now creating a society in which we're all about the freedom with no responsibility and boundaries. Yes. And how does this relate to this? Unfortunately, without compassion, forgiveness, with the freedom and responsibility, I am not sure that I think we have to be very careful about the conversations that we open, because there is no space there doesn't seem to be enough space for re-education, and re-education is not the word, it sounds very Stalinist. What's the rehabilitation? Right. So I'm very wary of cancel culture. Who knows? Someone might bring up this podcast in 10 years' time, but I'm, truth. But cancel culture, where I really object to someone having made a homophobic or racist comment or sexist comment 25 years ago, and it being dug up as something for the present now, because there is no space for forgiveness, there's no space for growth, there is no freedom of speech in terms of people saying what they feel, because you need people to say what they feel so you can challenge the ideas, right? So you can re-educate them. Because not everyone that says something that's racist comes from a point of hate. Some people just do not know.
That's the way they think it is.
Concept of it. Okay? And unfortunately, with the problem I have with the current movements also come with cancel culture and vengeance and people getting shouted down, no one being listened to. So I'm stuck between saying, actually, these are injustices which need to be corrected. But this is not the way I think human beings should be treated. At the same time, I'm acknowledging the pain that people are generally feeling and the anger and the injustice. So for someone like me who thinks about all these issues together, because let's not be mistaken, we're not going to be able to, in the current climate, be able to have these conversations without the culture overlaying it. Now, we're talking about collaboration, which is what you do. And the very thing that has happened in terms of this lockdown is a lot of division has been fostered. Right? I have people cross the road, right? Because there's another human being. Yeah. So this is a legitimate issue.
Yeah.
But I feel that the container in which it's presented could have elements of, I wouldn't say illegitimacy, but might not serve the end purpose. I do not want someone who's grown up in a village somewhere in rural England. Maybe they're quite pious. They don't watch much TV. They're not on Facebook much because they know they don't want to toxify themselves and everything else. Then they go into a restaurant. They come into central London. They go into the restaurant. They don't have any black friends, don't know anything. And they say, oh, was anyone sat here? They're sat there. Then they say, oh, there was a colored lady just here or something, or a black lady. And then someone gets offended and everyone in the restaurant is like, stone the racist and everything else. Yeah. But it's an extreme example, but I'm saying we're in a society that, because we do not listen, I think, we need to risk being offended.
Yes.
We need to risk being offended. Yeah. But the deeper thing to that is, I do not feel that people are given the freedom to be. And being means being able to know what you're good at, know what you're not good at, but not be something that condemns you, sees you as either something you want to build on or to leave, or be happy with that. And this lack of freedom to be and to conform to something means that people then protect themselves instead of build themselves, such that they're going out into the world with a lot of insecurity and they're jumping onto what there is because they want to get that social proof and they want to jump on things. So, for example, there'll be no one in the restaurant, I'm just giving this fictional example, that will say, hang on a second, you don't even know this person. That wasn't fair. They were just describing it. And someone say, hey, excuse me, sir or madam.
Yeah.
I found that term offensive. And they might go, oh, I'm ever so sorry. What's the correct term? And that's the end of it. But there's increasingly less and less space for conversation. The mob the mob mentality just sort of piles in.
Well, it's social media as well, isn't it? As much as that's a blessing to us. I mean, some of the stuff that I've seen on there, it's incredulous. And because it can be anonymous, because they can get fierce down the end of a keyboard, can't they? And that is something we have to be aware of. And I think the majority of people are, she said optimistically. I hope they are. Go on, tell me otherwise.
Right. This is the situation. Is I've looked at this toxicity, but it's developed. The professors of tomorrow are the students of today. Ooh. But what we've done is we have skipped. What normally happens is, okay, without looking at the political spectrums, I have a whole conversation around that. Is at some point you have to have the marriage between the ideal and reality, and somehow make sure over time that what was once an idealist fantasy becomes more of a reality. But where people aren't factoring in, sometimes it takes time, it takes maturity, and your ideas change. Okay, so we're in a situation where there's a reason why we age. There's a reason why we mature. Like, this is nature. We're ignoring nature. Like, yes, like, it's not that kids don't have anything to say, but an adult is an adult for a reason, right? And people need to know the difference between that. Myself at 30 and myself now is going to be different from myself in 20 years' time, right? Okay. Yes, you can learn all the lessons, but you might be 50 by the time you learn the lessons that you could have learned at 25 if you just listened to someone older. So yes, you can know it all yourself, but So how I go back into that is this kind of cancel culture, lack of conversation, the inability to have debate, to hold to ideas which you don't agree with and hold them in suspense to actually distill because you're searching for truth, is something that comes with maturity. Okay, but we're not having really mature conversations, I think, generally about almost anything.
No, everything's polarized, isn't it? Everyone, it's either or, right or wrong. Yes. And it's like, well, what about the grey in the middle? Everyone's trying to be right and damn everybody else that isn't. It's exhausting. I mean, civil war waiting to happen, really. It's
and that's what I'm pushing back against. So some people say, oh my gosh, you're anti this or you're anti. No, I'm actually pro truth and pro fact and pro civility, which is very unpopular these days. So, sorry.
I was just going to say, as a classic example, did you see the tweet that J.K. Rowling put out, which was a bit humorous, and obviously she didn't mean offense by it, but it was just deluged by stuff, and she had to kind of justify herself, and it's like, she could just say sorry and let it go and all the rest of it, but it was like, why do you have to be that mean? Why do you have to kind of be, and people...
Unfortunately, we're in a situation where because there's no forgiveness, sorry doesn't cut it.
No.
People wonder why our politicians can't say sorry, because it never ever stops there.
Yeah.
Because if they say sorry, then they go, it never ever stops. So you have to stop it somewhere, right? Because this culture has no forgiveness. So when there's no forgiveness, people won't say sorry. And when there's also a legal culture behind it, then people can't say sorry. And people need to be able to say sorry because they know they'll have forgiveness. And people need to be able to say sorry because they have repentance, which means turning around to face, turning around from what they used to do.
Do you think as a culture, because we have, according to statistics, lost our faith, Christian churches are emptier, if that's a stat that you would agree with, do you think that's how we have lost this ability to forgive?
I mean, no doubt. This is something I'm totally sure of. And if you look at, I will share with you some material which escapes me. The very first thing that when you have an insurgent in the state, I'll put it up, an ex-KGB departure is you take out godlessness, you take out God, you take out morality, because the ultimate aim of that form of government is for the state to be in control of everything. And you also need people to be divided. This is why the secret services, the Stasis have neighbors reporting them, neighbors and everything else, because you need people to be divided. The very first thing is you take away people's faith, and I think that we have made errors, right? We have made errors in terms of leaving a moral vacuum. Okay, so there is so much to be desired about the way that man has implemented. I'm a Bible believing Christian, and I believe there is so much about the church institution and the building, and there's so much that leaves to be desired. But as a Christian, I understand that anywhere where you put man, they're just going to do the man thing. Okay, so the church is not meant to be perfect, because the Bible says, looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith, and it became an institution in this country. So I fully understand people who are like, you know what? I don't get this hypocrisy. I don't feel this way. This is not for me. This doesn't, and then we have all the scandals about the church not being strict enough about people who came in. And then we had all the scandals, with the children, and then the cover-ups and everything else. I fully can see why people will move away from the faith. But you need to understand this, create a vacuum.
Yes. Well, what's interesting is I think some people are trying to create their own vacuum. I don't know if you've ever come across Landmark Education.
I have come across Landmark.
As an example. So I went on one of their wonderful courses, and I'm not knocking Landmark in any way, shape or form. But what was interesting is I did the first forum, 3-day thing. And on day 1 or 2, I was sitting there going, this feels familiar. Is this familiar? Everyone was having to kind of concentrate on something that they wanted to put right in their lives. And you could hear crying, and you could hear just people being, and the energy in the room was incredible. And I'm like, oh my God, it's just like being at church.
You see,
when you go to church and you go through all the teachings that you're given again and again and again, we seem to have lost Aaron. Oh, he's back again. Lovely. Yeah. When you go through all of the teachings again and again and again, it's exactly what Landmark were teaching you. So that one of the homeworks were to go through all your contacts and basically make a phone call to people that you had unfinished business with. Have a phone call and call them. And I'm like, sort it out. So after the course, a friend said to me, oh, well, you didn't do it. If you didn't make a phone call, you didn't do it. I said, well, why? Oh, you didn't do it properly because you must have had someone that you had unfinished business with. I'm like, well, I'm a Christian, so I can't have unfinished business. I have to go. If there's a problem with a relationship, it's in my duty to go and talk to them, forgive them, ask for forgiveness and get it flat. I can't live with that. I can't sleep with that if that's still outstanding. So, but what they were doing was the similar sort of thing, go and ask forgiveness, make a phone call, but without the faith element.
You see, I'll expand on that a little bit because so in between coming back strongly to the faith, we might have another conversation another time, is I got involved in a lot of other things. So I did the whole Tony Robbins program. I did like John DeMartini. I did, a lot of stuff. I even did the Landmark program. I even did up until the fourth program, the leadership one, where you actually train to become a leader. Mm-hmm. And I had a very similar thing. So I actually looked at this and I thought, actually, this is a lot of the Bible with God stripped out with a little bit of Buddhism and a little bit of Hinduism and a little bit of thingy, but it's actually Ecclesiastes 3, vanity is vanity, everything is vanity, which is everything is meaningless. Confess your sins to one another. Yeah. But you see, people also need to understand forgiveness is hearing a sorry that has never been said, right? So, and then I looked at this and I thought, actually, because I don't want to turn this into a pure Christian podcast, but it says, but when we're speaking about people who have a form of godliness but deny its power. So for me, I don't want to, I took a lot of useful things from that. I wouldn't go into whether I'd recommend it or not. For me as a Christian, I could no longer merge being having the Landmark stuff because I have the Bible. I have the Bible, which is free, which has everything that I needed in it, and I can absolutely see how people can drift without having a foundational compass to be able to run things by. And when I go back to the saying where I said you actually guard your heart with your mind, not your mind with your heart. And to really do that is a lot of people are being driven by the feeling in the moment and they're not using their mind. So for example, I can say, you know what, it is absolutely terrible what happened when I watched that 9-minute video, or is it 8-minute 56? When I watched that video. But that's my emotion, right? But in my mind, I know that not all the police are racist. Not all white people are racist. White Jesus is not part of the oppression. I'm just saying what goes in. So therefore, because my mind is guarding my heart, my emotion doesn't drive me to then discard a friend I've known for 24 years because they're now a white man who doesn't understand the oppression I've been through. But if it was the other way round, I'd go with that emotion and then turn around and use my mind to rationalize why this friend I've known for 24 years has been part of the oppressive patriarchy. But I have to have had the mind there in the first place to be able to distill the emotion from the heart, which is different from ignoring your feelings. And this is where we have it the other way around, I feel. And that's because we do not have a basis. So anything goes. And the problem with anything goes, it's all good when everyone's on your side till they turn on you. So we're in an age now where brands, we're in June 2020, have decided they're pulling out of Facebook in July. Okay. Now, Facebook has been the most woke thing there. They've supported everything. They take down stuff, everything else. And you just realize that when people are looking for something, because there's an emptiness or an idealism which has been made up in the moment, even though there are some very, very valid things, there'll always be something because you're not coming from a place of certainty and something that's solid. Now, it's going to be very difficult to navigate this because in between, woven into some of these ideas, which are are dangerous if you look through history and see the millions of lives that have actually been caused. And when you see what's happened to societies when they've gotten rid of certain things, there are boundaries in society for a reason. There are also legitimate concerns about unfairness, about abnormal corporate profits, about slave labor, about irresponsible political behavior. I mean, let's go into the States. I mean, let's look at Flint, for example. You know about the water poisoning in Flint, the lead in the water, and all this. There's so much that goes on, and I think where maturity and wisdom comes in is being able to unpick the issues that really make a difference and matter without being swept up in a mob movement.
Yes.
And that is where it's going to take great skill, wisdom, empathy to navigate that effectively.
I think absolutely 100% agree. It's you have just captured the enormity of what we've got going forward. And for me, for these kind of conversations to carry on and keep and being there constantly for people to feed off of as they go. So when they've seen something online or they've seen a real life incident, they've got something where they can go to kind of work out if it's a heart, if it's a head, if it's something that they can get on board with or something that they should be moving away from. And I think it's not going to happen like that. It's not about a rule. It's not about a politician. It's not about a law that needs to be put in place. It is about, from the groundswell up, making a difference. And that, in essence, is what Collaboration Global is about. If we swing it all the way around back to the beginning, is that one of our core values, collaboration is one, human being first, and love. Those are our three core values. And when I talk about it in our meetings, it's like, I don't care whether you're black, white, short, tall, fat, thin, gay, straight, male, female, whatever, you're a human being first. And we love you. And I think from my perspective, going through my Pollyanna optimistic world that I'm in, I expect beautiful things from everybody. I expect trust, I expect respect. And that's kind of what I get back because I'm putting it out there. That's what I'm giving. And it's very rare that I have somebody that do the dirty on me. And I'd much rather go out there and give love, expecting good things to come back, than be cautious and be worried and be fretful and see bad things all around me. So, Aaron, thank you very much for being part of this very special recording. Hopefully we had a little blip in the middle there, but I'd like for you to share how somebody who's interested in connecting with you maybe would like some help on how they can, become the best person that they can possibly be. I know that's something you help people with. How is the best way for them to contact you?
Thank you, Jill. So it's been a pleasure being on this podcast. So there are two ways you can connect with me: via my email, which if you have a pen ready, you might want to take this down. So it's aaron@aaron.yahaya.com. That is Alpha Alpha Romeo Oscar November at Alpha Alpha Romeo Oscar November Yankee Alpha Hotel Alpha Yankee Alpha.com. So that's aaron@aaron.yahaya.com. Or you can find me on Facebook. You'll have to find me Aaron Love Yahaya. So just put it into the search bar and I'll be there. Or if you're very funky and you're on Instagram, it is @AaronInspires, one word. So Instagram is @AaronInspires, one word. So be in touch. I'd love to hear your thoughts, your views, and I'd love to be in conversation with you.
Brilliant, thank you. And if you want to know more about Collaboration Global, just check out the website, collaborationglobal.org. And on there, you can find out how you can connect up and come to one of our meetings. They're always the last Tuesday of the month, and you're more than welcome to come and join and meet some of our community. So I've been Jill Tiney. This has been Aaron Yahaya. Thank you so much for coming. It's been an absolute pleasure. Cheers.